Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Breaking the Game show here on the Nothing But Net channel, brought to you by Dash Radio. We are going to be doing our rookie report and our preseason standouts. Austin, how's it going, brother?
I'm doing good, Stephen. Doing good. It's nice to see you on this wonderful evening. It's always fun to join you on this show and talk a little ball. So I'm excited for the show tonight. It should be good.
Yeah, absolutely. We're kind of taking a break from what everyone else is talking about with Giannis signing his Supermax and with James Harden getting traded supposedly and all this other stuff. Not that anything has been reported that he is, but, just the ongoing discussion that he eventually will or won't be, whatever. Talking about a few rookies that we each find intriguing here in the preseason and obviously just other preseason standouts as well. Austin, what do you think about, the way that the preseason has gone overall so far?
Well, this is the peak of overreaction season for NBA fans and analysts alike. Obviously everybody sees these guys that are having these great performances, and they think in the back of their mind, oh yeah, this is against second stringers and guys that aren't even going to be on the court much. But at the same time, it's hard not to get excited about some of these performances that we've seen from some of these breakout guys. And as far as the rookie report goes, a little bit underwhelming to a certain extent. I mean, I guess they are rookies. You can't expect too much from them, but it seems like, it's a little not what I expected, to be honest. I kind of figured at least one or two of the top couple of picks would be shining in the preseason, and it's not really been the case. But for me, I think it's been exciting. It's been fun. There's been so many other storylines. It's been kind of like the games are almost second place so far, but there have been some really good games for sure. So I'm excited to get into this. How about you? What do you think about this preseason so far? How do you think it's been going?
I think you just hit the nail on the head. It's like there's basketball going on, but let's just focus on the main storylines because, and it's also weird too, right? Because if you're a fan of the team or the player that you're watching at that moment, this is an important game. But if it's someone that you don't care about or a team that you don't particularly care too much for, it's like, it's preseason, who cares, right? So it's kind of double-edged sword in that aspect. But, this is mainly NBA headline season with, oh, but yeah, by the way, there's some basketball games being played at the same time, right? Like that's how it feels to me.
Definitely. It's like the drama around the game is, taking the driver's seat for now. But once the games count, I'm sure that'll change like it always does.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get right into it, Austin. We're going to be talking about the rookie report first. That's going to be our first segment. And you're going to be talking about a pretty interesting guy. We've debated about whether or not this guy should have been taken number one overall. But this is your first, candidate for the rookie report, Austin. Tell me a little bit about who you're talking about and what you think about how he's played so far.
Well, you know me, ever the modest guy to pick the no-name rookie to talk about, obviously. No, I'm just kidding.
Right, yeah.
I'm going to be talking about Anthony Edwards, the number one overall pick in the most recent draft with the Minnesota Timberwolves. And to be honest, this is kind of what I was talking about. Not a whole lot of exciting news to report on this front. He struggled mightily in their first game. He bounced back a little bit in the second game. He looks a little bit lost on the court right now, which I think is to kind of be expected from rookies in their first game, especially in this really short off season that they've had. We got to remember there's basically no training camp up to this point, really. Not like a normal one, at least. So I don't want to hold too much against him, but it hasn't been where I expected. I'll get into the numbers here in just a minute, but what have you thought about him so far, Stephen?
I mean, I hate to say I told you so, but like this is kind of the worry that I had with Anthony Edwards coming into the NBA. And granted, his first time playing against the field. And again, like what I just mentioned earlier, like, oh, this is just preseason, so it doesn't matter. Like this is the time for him to try to figure out the game, right? But had he, been balling, I'm pretty sure you would have came in, beating your chest a little bit more on this segment, right, Austin? If you would have,
for sure.
Right. And then I would have been in your spot saying, it's preseason, whatever, so I don't know. It's just, he's showing you what the concern was, right? Like, granted, I don't think that the hustle, effort, and energy has been an issue yet, but granted, this is the first time he's graced an NBA basketball court, right? So he wants to come out to that number one pick standing, and, he's figuring it out. It's not like he's walking into a particularly easy, scenario either, where at best off the get, he's going to be your third option, maybe, depending on the lineup. So, yeah, that's kind of what I see in him right now.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of was figuring that's where you'd go with this. The I told you so game for sure, because for anybody that, obviously nobody knows because this was in our group chat, but Steven and I got into a pretty animated discussion about what we think the future ceiling, I guess, is for a guy like Anthony Edwards. I tend to think it's a little bit higher than it probably realistically is. And Steven's probably a little bit more of a realist in this situation than I am. I kind of expected him to come in and not really have a whole lot of trouble scoring. He's got the size and the body and the athleticism that would signify somebody that should, be able to at least, get their own shots with relative ease. Whether or not they shoot a great percentage is another thing.
Turns out you got to be good at basketball on top of being a good athlete too. So
right. It kind of slipped my mind that at this level they're all incredible athletes, not just him. But they actually, both games were against Memphis, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Right, and the more recent game, he was 4 for 14. So not great shooting. That's 28.6%. 1 for 7 on threes. That's alarming for sure. He was 3 for 4 from the free throw line. But like another thing I kind of worried about with him is scoring was kind of the thing that I expected him to contribute, at least early on, and not a whole lot else. And he didn't really contribute a whole lot of scoring, but he definitely didn't really contribute a whole lot of anything else. In this game, he had 4 rebounds, 2 assists. He did have 2 steals, so that wasn't bad, and a block. But he turned the ball over 5 times. His plus minus was -14. Finished with 12 points. Not a terrible outing for a preseason game, one of your first ever performances as a professional. I'm sure there's still a little bit of jitters. He is a 19-year-old kid playing with grown men. But I would have liked to see those shooting numbers be significantly better. I'm definitely not excited about that aspect of his game at this point. He doesn't seem like he has NBA level 3 yet at this point, and I don't know that he will. I mean, 28% from the field overall is pretty bad, and then 1 for 7 from threes is really awful. So, obviously I don't want to overstate his struggles, but he hasn't looked good up to this point. Let's just tell it like it is.
Yeah, and I'm not going to beat you up anymore on this. I mean, you pretty much covered everything that I wanted to say about him, So we'll transition now to a guy that's kind of comparable, right, in build and stature. And, he was drafted 5th overall in the same draft, and that's Isaac Okoro. He's a guy that I was also low on because of the shooting. And I will tell you that over these last 3 games, granted, his last game wasn't his best, but overall, I mean, the young man has been playing extremely well. I mean, he played against the Pacers twice and against the Knicks once, and I'm sorry for all of the 67% of our network that are Knicks fans right now.
Right.
But they did win by double digits. He's played 33, 28, and 30 minutes in each of those 3 games. He scored 18, 15, and 10 points. He is not averaged less than 1 point per possession in each of those games. He's contributed with steals, rebounds. He's shooting the 3. He was 2 of 4, 1 of 1, and 1 of 1 in each of those games. He also shot free throws decently well, a couple and ones. He's drawn a lot of fouls in each game, but he also has committed his fair share. But at least for the Cleveland Cavaliers, he's kind of a bright, shiny, light at the end of a tunnel, so to speak, because not everything that happens in Cleveland is good, right? And when it's just slightly below average, it looks great. But Isaac Okoro has actually just been flat out good. He has played well, and I think that he is, complementing and all the pieces around him. They have that 2-guard backcourt. They have Andre Drummond, Kevin Love, and he's kind of just navigating that offense and the defense extremely well. I've been pleasantly surprised on Okoro. I didn't have him as my 5th best prospect. I actually think that Denny Avdia made a lot more sense for the Cleveland Cavaliers, for the direction of their team. But overall, Isaac Okoro has played extremely well. Granted, again, it was against the Pacers twice, which a good team, not a great team, but a good team, a good solid team. And then against the New York Knicks, and we know that they have had a couple rookies step in and be productive, but they're not really looked at as an elite team on either side of the ball right now.
Right. Well, let's just get this out of the way right away. The Knicks are not going to be very good this year. So, that's not much of a measuring stick. Sorry, Chris, if you're listening, but I'll try not to be too mean. But the Knicks aren't really expected to do a whole lot. So, that was kind of less of a surprise from my point of view. But the Pacers, at least historically, the last few years have been a fairly solid defensive team. They
Right.
kind of hang their hat on defense, and he was extremely successful. And he's a guy that I kind of, we knew coming into this that his defense was going to be there regardless. He's obviously a pretty good, a really solid defender. That's kind of what he made his name on in college. There he is. And,
Yep.
but, this offense has been a pleasant surprise for a team who's been drafting awfully high for the last few years and kind of hasn't really hit on a star at this point yet. Still, early on in their careers. Those two guards, Sexton and Garland, may improve significantly, but so far it doesn't look like they've had a whole lot of success up to this point. So I'm sure it's a welcome sight to see one of their draft picks, at least in the preseason so far, succeeding the way he has been.
Yeah, exactly. And again, just to touch on the fact that, I'm bringing him up, him being drafted at the 5th spot overall surprised a few people. I think that there were some that were higher on him than others, around the league. And, people who analyze, college basketball prospects on a professional level, they were all over the board with these guys as they were with many other prospects, right? I wasn't particularly high on Okoro, but he is, again, limited sample size, and it is preseason. He is showing that he is well worth that 5th selection spot here in my eyes, Austin.
I would have to agree completely. I almost feel like at this point with the play of the other top 4 picks, and obviously one of them hasn't played at all, but he might be considered a steal at this point. None of those guys really have had a whole lot of success up to this point, and he's kind of come right in, like a house of fire. Just, sometimes you hear guys say when they come from college that it's actually easier to score in the pros. I don't necessarily know if that's true or why. I know there's a lot more floor spacing and the game's a lot more up and down, so it is probably a little less bogged down. And so maybe he's going to be one of those guys that improves because of that. A lot of times guys in college are kind of hamstrung by what their system wants them to do and slowing the ball down and running half court sets. And he may, be the type of guy that just needed this, kind of up and down, free flowing open court game to really show what he could do offensively.
And I just love the fact that he's active in every area of the game. I mean, you watch it, the eye test shows you that, and you look at the stat sheet and they reflect what you see in the game as well. I mean, like I said, he has not scored as a rookie in 3 preseason games. He has, in each of those games, he was over 1 point per possession, which is, compared to these other rookies, he's actually doing quite well. Austin, who's your second rookie that you want to give your report?
Well, this should redeem me with our Prez. I picked Obi Toppin from the New York Knicks. He fell to them at the 8th pick, which, obviously everybody that's a Knicks fan was extremely excited when that came to fruition because everybody kind of thought he'd be long gone by that point. And he's a local kid, and obviously you could see the emotion on his face when he got picked by the Knicks. But he did struggle significantly in his first game. He's had 3 games so far. I'm trying to find the first one. I'm sorry. My notes somehow are completely blank on me here. I had them saved and I pulled it up and it's all completely gone. So
Google Drive is at it again. So
I apologize for this. I feel like I'm not prepared. I spent like 2 hours putting this together earlier today.
It's all good. Well, what about just like in the games that you watch? We don't have to just speak to the numbers, but I mean, he's shown flashes on the court, right, Austin, that he is actually, ready to succeed at least offensively in the NBA.
Right. Well, he's obviously, got NBA level athleticism. He's obviously gonna rebound pretty well. He had 7 rebounds in the most recent game. I do remember watching that. He was 1 for 9 against the Pistons. Here we go. I got it. I found it. Okay. 1 for 9 against the Pistons. 1 for 6 from 3. Yep, 1 for 6 from 3. That's good for 11% and 16% respectively. 1 of 2 from the free throw line. This was definitely a kind of a stinker of a game for him in his debut. I feel like that was just probably a little bit rookie jitters. He finished with a -8 for his plus minus. He only had 4 points in the game, but he did bounce back in the most recent game. I think he ended up 4 for 6 with 11 points. He had 7 rebounds. He's been extremely active, which you like to see. He seems like he's going to fit in well with the guys they have there, RJ Barrett and Mitchell Robinson specifically. I think those three could be a pretty exciting front court in the very near future. RJ Barrett, by the way, just want to put this out there. I picked him for most improved player. He looked pretty good so far. So there's one thing I got right.
There you go. And we're not going to be talking about this guy too, Emmanuel Quickly, but I mean, even Quickly, is showing the fact that, down the line, he and Obi topping together and we graded this draft class. I gave them an A+. I believe you gave them an A, right? So their pieces Definitely. Are even showing that they can fit together, long-term potentially. And, they had, I think there was 7 assists from Quickly the other night. So yeah, I mean, Toppin and Quickly together could be something fierce.
Definitely. Quickly's looked good so far. A little bit better than I expected this early on. A lot of times I feel like, rookie point guards tend to really struggle. But obviously this stat line from this Pistons game is not a representative sample of what Obi Toppin was able to do in college and why he was drafted where he was. I think everybody realizes that, and pump the brakes a little bit if you're too worried. They did just beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, who you were just talking about with Isaac Okoro.
Yeah,
193
correctly. Yeah.
Oh, it's okay. It's all good. I don't even have anything written down apparently, so you're doing better than me.
I appreciate
But he came back in this game. He played a lot more. He played almost 31 minutes versus 23 in his debut. He was 4 for 6 from the field. Not anything too crazy, but he did shoot well. So like I said, the 7 rebounds. He finished with a plus 16 in this game. I think it was obvious that he was a little bit more active. He was, a little bit more comfortable. The jitters were kind of out of the way. I do expect an up and down season from him, to be totally honest. I feel like there are some parts of his game where they may not translate right away from college to the pros. And that does kind of worry me a little bit, but I do think he's the player that has the work ethic to get through that. And he's definitely got the ability to be, a lethal scorer in this league. So I'm excited about what I've seen from him so far, just like the energy level and he looks good in that Knicks uniform. Let's be honest.
He certainly does. And we'll transition now to my last rookie that we're going to talk about before we get to our next segment. And that's going to be Teo Maledon, who was drafted 34th overall and ended up being a part of the Oklahoma City Thunder, the bright future Thunder that they have. And this is a guy, again, that I was low on. And, our buddy Lee Branscombe of hoopsprospects.com was incredibly high on Teo Maledon. So, even though it makes me wrong by my analysis, at least in the short sample size, that he's looking good, at least Lee gets some sort of glory out of this, from his productivity. But, Teo Maledon has played the Spurs twice. In each of those games, he scored 20 points and 11 points. He was beneath that 1 point per possession average in the second game. He's, giving you a couple assists in the games, a couple steals, few rebounds. He's shown the ability that he can shoot the three, at good levels, 2 of 4 and 2 of 5 in each of those games. I believe he is 100% from the free throw line, which is awesome. And, they also, the fact that he's drawing fouls, I think speaks a lot to just how good of a player that he is. So I think that what you're seeing with Teo Maledon in the short sample size, it's very encouraging. And I hope that it continues. But I mean, he's proven me wrong here, with his play with the Thunder. Austin, what are your thoughts on Teo Maledon?
He's one of the guys that I'll be completely honest with you. I didn't know a whole lot about coming into the draft. I didn't do a whole lot of study on him. I knew his name, but not much other than that. So I'm really pleasantly surprised with how he's played. He's obviously lit it up a couple times. He looks really comfortable out there. I kind of alluded to it, and I think you've said it, even more than me, that this draft may not have the star power at the top, but it was fairly deep. There was a lot of, starter level talent in this draft, perennial starter level talent, we'll say. A lot of times, I think Lee said maybe 25-30%, maybe a little bit more than that, of the guys that get drafted end up sticking around for, you know, a long career. So this may be one of those drafts where there's a lot of guys that are still in the league down the road, but maybe just not the top end talent. And I think this is kind of what you're seeing there with Maladon. You know, obviously you didn't rate him quite as high as some other people, but you know, that's part of the fun of this, is everybody has their own opinion and you can't get them all right, Steven. Don't beat yourself up too much.
And it's fine. It's not like he was picked, you know, 10th overall and had him graded 60. I mean, he was drafted 34th overall. So every team had a chance essentially to take a grab at him. And, you know, he fell to the second round, which is fine. And you see this with these international prospects, unless you're Alexei Pokusevsky, right? Which, you know, for also on the same team as Teo Maladon, but not looking as good. So Austin, real quick before we transition, I just wanted to give just a quick honorable mention. I'm not going to give a lot of numbers or anything, but two other rookies that I've been impressed with that if we had time I would have gotten to were Malachi Flynn and Cole Anthony. I think that both of those guys, at both point guards, have shown in their limited playing time that they are going to be impact guys for their team for, you know, at least this upcoming season. Austin, were there any other guys that stood out to you, at least on the rookie end?
Well, you know, Malachi Flynn was one that I was definitely interested in touching on a little bit. You know, he's looked great. I think it does kind of seem weird that they just gave Fred VanVleet this big extension, you know, all that money, and then they went out and drafted a couple point guards. But you can never have too many good ball handling guards that can run the offense. I don't think that's ever really an issue. So, you know, he's looked great. He had the 17-point game. He obviously lit it up. He's another guy that, you know, I knew a little bit more about him than Maladon, but he was one that I just didn't know really what to expect out of him coming into this, and he's looked awesome. So he's definitely stood out in my eyes. And then a couple of the other top picks are just the ones I wanted to kind of touch on.
Oh, yeah, sure.
You know, LaMelo Ball has struggled just about as bad as Anthony Edwards. They both have struggled to find their shot. They both really have looked lost at times. LaMelo just kind of seemed like he wasn't able to get into a flow of the offense, which
he was scoreless in one game. Yeah, he was scoreless.
Right. He didn't even score in his debut. So, you know, Anthony Edwards may have looked bad, but at least he made a bucket, you know?
Correct.
So LaMelo, it's surprising to me because I kind of felt like, obviously he's a rookie and he's got a lot.
Yeah, he's got a lot on his plate
to work on.
Sure.
The natural way that he plays the game, you know, he kind of gets in the flow of the offense, you know, just by the way he plays. So it was kind of weird for me to see him so like disjointed and kind of out of sync with his teammates. I think that obviously will work itself out. I do think he is an elite talent. I think he's hopefully going to be better than his brother. You know, I was pretty high on Lonzo when the Lakers took him, and he kind of broke my heart a little bit when he struggled. He didn't, I guess, not struggled, but I was hoping for, you know,
a star
next coming of Jason to a certain extent. So, right. You know, and he does fill up the stat sheet, but not the way you'd like. And LaMelo just kind of it was a kind of a similar start to what Lonzo did, you know, when he came into the league. Lonzo obviously dominated the summer league in the preseason. He looked really good. And then he struggled in the regular season. So maybe this will be a flip flop. Maybe his little brother will struggle in the preseason and come out on fire in his opening game. We'll see. And then James Wiseman has not played and will not play for the entire preseason. And I don't know if they've said anything. I haven't heard, but I did kind of speculate that it may be COVID related, because I think they used that term.
Lay down. Yeah, they did lay down the vibe that it was going to be.
Because, you know, you see all these teams now using this term, they have an excused absence. And that's because they can't just come out and say, you know, hey, this guy has this illness because of HIPAA laws. So it's always kind of been weird to me that the NFL does that. But anyway, so he's not going to play. So obviously we're just more of the waiting game with him. How long is it going to be till you actually get to see him on a court? You know, he sat out almost the entire college season. So we don't really know completely what to expect from him. And I was excited to watch him in the preseason. So I was fairly disappointed to hear that news, but hopefully he's all right. And I just kind of wanted to make sure everybody was aware of what was going on with him and why we haven't seen him on the court yet. So,
yeah. And our buddy Patrick Graham, who recently just kind of partnered up with Off the Ball, just wrote in, say 100% he will be better. And I would just counter with, well, it's hard to get much worse, right, with the way that LaMelo Ball had been playing. So I'll just throw that in there for our buddy Patrick. All right, so we'll transition now to the I'm just saying we'll go ahead and transition now to the preseason standouts. And Austin, I'm just going to jump on this one. And I'm going to start with the guy who I did save to kind of be on deck. And with the game that he just played on the 16th against the Thunder, he just vaulted up into my standings. I got to talk about this young man, and that's sophomore Coby White. He's played phenomenally well for the Bulls. He's played the Rockets twice, the Thunder once. In those games, he scored 15, 20, and 27, never less than 1 point per possession. He's even given you a block in one game. He's given you some steals in another game, assists in all of them, rebounds in all of them. He's made 2, 4, and 5 threes in those games, respectively. He's drawing fouls. He's committing not that many, and he's even drawing charges. So he's showing that even though he's not probably going to be like a plus defender, as far as like individual stopper, he is capable, at least in a team construct underneath your reigning supposed to be coach of the year, Billy Donovan. I just really love the way that he's kind of popped. He may be the leader of this team coming into this season with, Zach LaVine even on this team. I think Coby White is showing that he has the capability and even the potential to be the face of this Bulls team going into the future. And that's kind of scary, right? Because they drafted well. Their rookie has had a great game as well. Zach LaVine, showing that he's still capable of being that guy. They still got to figure out their front court situation with Markkanen and Wendell Carter. How can these guys play together? Overall, though, I've been extremely impressed with the way that Coby White has been playing for the Chicago Bulls. What say you, Austin?
I agree with everything you just said. He had 27 points the other night. He looked electric. He looked like he was in control out there. He looks like he's made a serious leap from his rookie season to now, which I kind of expect from a lot of these young guys. I mean, if they're doing what they're supposed to have been doing, they've had a lot of time off to just hone their skills and work on their game. I think you saw that from Tyler Hero in the bubble. He obviously took that time off to work on his game because he came back almost a completely different player. And that's kind of what we're seeing from Coby White here too. Honestly, for me, of their 3 most recent high draft picks, he's the one that I was least, had the least expectations of, at least when he got drafted. The other 2 guys, Markkanen and Wendell Carter, I kind of was pretty high on, and Markkanen looked good out of the gate, but he regressed a lot under Jim Boylan. So, it wouldn't be that crazy to say that Coby White may be the future face of this team. He may already be. And, we say it all the time. You kind of need that perimeter player and that guard to be like the guy that's in control of things, or it just makes things a lot harder. So this bodes well for the Bulls. He's looked great. I'm a little bit of a Bulls fan. They're close enough to be local from my hometown, at least.
How many teams do you have, Austin? You got the Lakers, you got the Pacers, and now you got the Bulls.
I like them more growing up. The future of this team. They're young, they're talented, and Coby White looks like he's excel.
Yeah, absolutely. Coby White is a phenomenal player. Who's your first standout that you want to talk about, Austin?
I want to talk about Zion Williamson. I've been excited to talk about this all day. They finally took the kid gloves off. They unwrapped them in the bubble wrap. They took off all the training pads and the knee pads and everything. And they said, here you go, son. It's time to play some basketball. Finally.
No more foam peanut.
I've been waiting for them to stop acting like this 6'8", 280-pound behemoth is made of glass. He looked exactly like he looked in the short time we saw him in last season. Just high motor, dominant, just kind of rips rebounds away from bigger, stronger guys, or guys that you would think are stronger, but there may not be. He's a pretty big boy. He had 26 points and 11 rebounds. He was 10 of 11 from the free throw line. He was dominant. I'm super duper excited to see this team, especially under Stan Van Gundy. I think you knew pretty much as soon as he got hired there that that minutes restriction was going out the window. I don't think Stan Van Gundy seems like the type of coach that's going to put his star player on a minutes restriction. And if that was their plan, I don't know that he would have ended up there.
No,
but he likes to do things his own way. But I will say that the offense they were running looked awesome against a Miami team that I picked to finish first in the East that just made it to the NBA Finals and gave the Lakers a run for their money. Obviously, again, it's preseason, so don't get too crazy down on Miami if you're a Heat fan. But
yes.
They're a good defensive team, and Zion and Brandon Ingram seem to get a lot of easy buckets right at the rim, and I think that's a product of what Stan Van Gundy's doing with that offense. So I was really, really excited with what he did.
Yeah, and he just seems like he can see the game at a veteran level already in his second season. In his rookie year, he played less than 30 games, right? Or less than 20 games even. So I don't know, just the way he plays, he moves different. He's got a different feel in the NBA compared to any other star that we see out there right now. And like you mentioned, he's playing well alongside Steven Adams, which when they acquired Steven Adams, you were kind of like, all right, what's the fit going to be like between these two bruising guys? And they seem to play well next to one another.
I think Zion's is going to show very shortly that he's a dynamic enough of a player to play next to him, and he doesn't have to be kind of pigeonholed as a big man necessarily, even though he obviously is. But you hit the nail on the head. He looks like he sees the game like it's in slow motion. He almost makes other guys on the court look like they're just kind of standing still when, he goes flying in there and rips an offensive rebound away from a bigger guy and dunks it on him, almost like he's just a kind of like a schoolyard bully in a way. And you almost never see the college star that was just physically bigger and stronger and dominating their opponents because of his physical abilities do that at the NBA level, especially not right away. So I think this is something on a whole nother level that we're seeing from him. I think it's the start of something really, really special. 61% from the field, 90% from the free throw line, all great numbers that you love to see. So I couldn't be higher on Zion Williamson right now.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. All right, Austin, the last guy that I want to discuss from my end for standouts, right, is a guy that probably not a lot of people are expecting to hear on the show right now, and that's Harry Giles for the Portland Trailblazers. I actually had a real good friend of mine, Phil Tross. Phil, if you're listening, hey, what's up? Told me to keep an eye out for Harry Giles, and I'm thinking like, okay, they have a Nurkic, they have Enes Kanter that they just signed. They have Carmelo Anthony. They got Covington. Like, how many minutes is this guy going to see? Well, in the 3 games that he's played 25 and 26 minutes. I'm going to talk on these first before I get to his final game. He scored 18, 19, 18, and then 19 in each of those games. 3 steals in his first, 2 steals in a second, 2 blocks in his first, 1 block in a second, 14 rebounds in his first, 13 rebounds in a second, gave you 1 assist in his first, 3 assists in a second. He shot, 8 of 13 his first game, 6 of 11 his second, made 1 3-pointer in his second game, was 6 of 6 from the free throw line, drew 4 fouls, committed 5. Those were all great numbers. Unfortunately, in his last game that he just played on the 16th against the Nuggets, he only played 12 minutes, only scored 2 points, 4 rebounds and assists, and then shot 25% from the floor, right? So that last game is not a great indicator, but like if you can get this sort of production that you had against, in his first 2 games against the Kings, Harry Giles has really stood out to me, and I think that he could be a very viable, rotational player for the Portland Trailblazers, who almost always seem to struggle with injuries. So having a guy like this play this promising early in the season, I think is a great look for Portland.
Yeah, didn't he have like a pretty serious injury in college? Like it was like a broken leg or a broken back or something pretty serious, I think. So,
yeah, I mean, he was projected to be one of the top guys in his draft.
I remember that. I think he was almost as highly touted as like Marvin Bagley and Wendell Carter Jr. when he went to Duke. In that level of recruit at least, and we just never really got to see that from him. So it's awesome to see him get a chance and be healthy and excel. And he's showing why people were so high on him at such a young age and have been for a while. Sometimes the NBA is hard. We expect guys to come in right away and just be terrific because they're, the next big thing. And not everybody can be like Zion Williamson and put up 25 points in their debut, or LeBron James putting up 20 in their debut. A lot of guys take a year or two to figure things out and find their way, and they still have to be coached up a lot to a certain extent. So, I think the future is bright for him, for a Kings team that, other than De'Aaron Fox, hasn't had a whole lot of bright spots. This is a nice bright spot for them.
Well, he now plays for Portland. He did play for the Kings,
yeah,
right?
Sorry.
Yeah. So, no, you're fine. It's kind of hard because he did play for Sacramento, and now he played against Sacramento in his first game on a new
there
team.
You go. The Kings got rid of him right when he's going to get good. So that's a perfect Sacramento move. There you go.
Well,
never mind.
Right. That's what you're saying. The NBA is hard. I was about to say, especially when you're drafted by Sacramento, right? And Vlade Divac. So, he's getting a good look in Portland. Like I said, I hope that it doesn't happen, but it's almost every season that they sustain at least one injury. I mean, Nurkic, Collins, all of these guys almost always get hurt. And hopefully it doesn't happen, but I would like to see Harry Giles just get minutes just because he's a good player. He can give you a little bit more versatility in certain matchups, right? He's already shown you, in these games, he's hit 1 to 2 3-pointers. I mean, again, short sample size. It's only 3 games. And Enes Kanter can't really play in every matchup, so Harry Giles could come in and give you quality minutes. And right now, he's my second standout in this preseason. Austin, who is yours?
Definitely. So I want to kind of start this with a question for you. Throughout LeBron's entire 18-year career, how many times can you remember the guy that his team drafted, from one year to the next? Other than maybe Mario Chalmers, there's not a whole lot, really. They've never really had a standout from the draft.
Anderson,
and I think right, but I just mean, wherever LeBron goes, it's kind of like, get rid of these draft picks, get rid of these rookies, and bring me in some veterans that can win me a title. Right. And to see how high LeBron is on this next guy, it just kind of blew me away. And that's Talen Horton-Tucker of the Los Angeles Lakers. Obviously I can't miss a chance to talk about my Lakers and brag on him a little bit, but
and even bring up
Lord, where did that come from? Oh yeah, you have to, of course.
You have to.
Where did that come from? I mean, you can't almost can't even find tape of him in a regular season game from last year. And he comes out in the opening game of the preseason and looks like the best player on both teams, which was, they were playing the Clippers. So, he was dominant. He made almost every shot he took. He made it look fairly easy. He was in control. He showed that he can be a point guard at this level for sure. Mm-hmm. He showed that he may be, another name in this long list of all of a sudden reliable offensive options that the Lakers seem to have now. And it almost makes you wonder if there's enough, minutes to go around for everybody. If he looks anything like this in the regular season, I don't know how Alex Caruso gets on the court a whole lot in front of him. Because
I would be worried if I'm Alex Caruso.
Caruso's thing is defense. That's kind of what he hangs his hat on. And everybody that you talk to says Talen Horton-Tucker's defense is his number one thing. And then he comes out and puts up
crazy.
Oh yeah, I think he's averaging over 3 steals a game so far in the preseason. I know he's leading the NBA. He's tied for the scoring lead. He's the 3rd in rebounds for in terms of guards. So he's doing everything. He's like I said, he's kind of was drafted at least more for his defensive skills, and he comes out and drops 34 points in his first real extended playing time here. And just to see LeBron and Anthony Davis and those guys on the bench just hollering and hooting every time he did something good, LeBron's going to put his name on that and say, I knew this guy was going to be good from the very beginning, whether he thought that or not. That's just how he is.
Like Shabazz here.
Right. And so it was just interesting to me to see a guy that was actually drafted by a LeBron James team really kind of stand out, fairly early in his career. Obviously Mario Chalmers, was a pretty good player for Miami for a long time, but this is a whole nother level. And I couldn't be more excited about the future for this kid. It just, I feel like, obviously I don't want to get too overblown about this, But if he keeps improving and keeps playing like this, I mean, I think the future of the Lakers is in really good hands with him, Anthony Davis, and all the other guys they have there, even once LeBron moves on or is done playing, whatever happens to be the case. But Talen Horton-Tucker obviously deserved one of my spots for preseason standouts with the way he's been playing.
Yeah, and this is just the rich getting richer, right? They just added Marc Gasol, who, in his preseason time, I almost wanted to give him mention because, boy, are the NBA in trouble that the Lakers now have another playmaker that they can run different unique sets through in Marc Gasol now. I mean, my goodness, the NBA should just simulate the season, So,
12
Marc
games.
Gasol. They added Dennis Schroeder, they added Wesley Matthews. I mean, and now Talen Horton-Tucker is like, oh hey, by the way, I'm basically a new addition for this team now. So, but to Alex Caruso's credit, he did come out and sing praises about this guy. I mean, AC is a guy that technically, he probably looks at it this way too, like wasn't supposed to be here and was a G League guy himself. So, he's probably proud of Talen Horton-Tucker just like anybody else on the Lakers too. So, go ahead.
I was just going to mention too, real quick, that Alex Caruso has a little bit of an X factor working in his favor too. He's kind of like this energy guy off the bench. He's like a fan favorite a little bit. He kind of gets the crowd going into it. He gets the bench going into it. He seems to have like a timely dunk on a breakaway almost every time the Lakers kind of need to get out of a lull with that second unit. So I think he will still be kind of a spark plug type guy off the bench for them. Talen Horton-Tucker may start moving in on his minutes more and more as the season goes on. But I also think we're going to see, a little bit longer rotation from the Lakers this year. I don't know if you'll see LeBron James in the top 2 or 3 in minutes per game like he's been the last few years. Just one, he's getting older. 2, it's a shortened off season. And 3, if they've got an embarrassment of riches, why not take advantage of it? And just one other thing I wanted to touch on just real fast is I think one of the other big improvements that the Lakers are going to have this year that nobody's really mentioned is there's absolutely zero pressure on Kyle Kuzma now. None. He isn't really expected to be that 3rd scoring option or the 4th scoring option or even maybe the 5th scoring option now. And he had 25 in his first game, and he just kind of looked like he was comfortable and able to kind of play his own game the way he wanted to. And I think that bodes well for them as well. So I think big things are on the horizon in LA for sure.
You could, I don't want to spend the whole time talking about LA, but you could also make the point that the fact that he's not even now likely going to be, their 4th, 5th option, I think that does give pressure at least to contract negotiation / trade scenarios that may come up in the future, right? And he may value himself more highly than say the rest of the NBA, at least right now. But Austin, a couple guys that I just want to give honorable mentions to real quick that we had on deck in case the conversation allowed it was Ja Morant, who dropped 20 and 17 in his first couple games, and then Kevin Durant, just came back and he has shown in limited time that he looks like he's going to be back, and that's great for the NBA. That's great for the future of the Brooklyn Nets. And, just excited to see him back on the floor. Who did you have as kind of your honorable mentions?
Well, you mentioned Kevin Durant coming back from an Achilles injury, and I had John Wall right there too. John Wall was somebody I was much less sure of how he would look coming back than I was Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's game was never really like an explosive scorer athlete type of guy. He's a 7-foot sharpshooter. He is fairly explosive, but he looked good. I do think he's going to be back enough to where he was before. Maybe not just as good. Defensively, he might struggle a little bit, but early on in Brooklyn, there's no shortage of storylines. There's no shortage of drama. There's no shortage of fun. He's looked good. Kyrie's been Kyrie, just exactly what we expected and then some. So,
but he's played well. But he has played well.
He did play well. And I don't know if you saw his interview, but he changed his tune big time. He said all the right things about Steve Nash loving playing for him, and about how he misspoke when he said they didn't have a coach and all this other stuff. He just being complimentary to everybody. He walked back his pawns talk about the media and all that stuff. So somebody got to him and said, hey man, this too early on in the year for this much, drama going on already. Let's at least get through the preseason. Correct. But KD looked like KD, and if they get along and they both play up to their potential, the Nets are going to be hard to beat in Eastern Conference for sure. But John Wall and kind of a package deal with DeMarcus Cousins. After that preseason, debut of those two, they look like old buddies from school days, just like they are. They were kind of laughing and joking around before the game. They went out there, they looked like they were loose and having fun. Boogie's obviously still kind of that stretch five shooter. He definitely doesn't have the same athleticism that he had before all the injuries, but
the mobility, the mobility aspect.
But he in Houston, and I think if he can return to form even 65% of where he was when he was at his best, and John Wall is John Wall again, if I were James Harden, I'd be rethinking my trade request, to be honest. I think that could be a fun team to play with. All of a sudden it could be like, oh, here we've got almost a big three if they're healthy and back to where they were. DeMarcus Cousins was a perennial all-star. He was a 25-point-a-game scorer. He's not probably going to be that, but John Wall looked electric. He looked tremendous. And I think he seems like the type of guard that would be fun to play with. But from all accounts, Harden doesn't want anything to do with it. And he looks like Houston's going to try to grant him his wish. But I think the future looks kind of a little bit better today than it did maybe a week or two ago for Houston. I wasn't sure about that John Wall trade, but I like what I saw so far for sure.
Yeah, and John Wall has kind of shown what I was hoping for in that deal, and the future being brighter, and James Harden by all accounts still winning out. Well, the latest report, as per the airing of the show, Philadelphia has made in certain trades between Houston and Philadelphia that Ben Simmons may be available. Those conversations, per Sham's report, are not fluid yet, and there's still a lot that would need to be worked out. But as of now, there are talks that Ben Simmons could be included in a trade package, and a lot of experts believe that he would have to be in order to move James Harden for that deal. But as of now, Austin, those talks have not progressed anywhere substantially. It's just, oh, hey, by the way, type information, which, NBA fans and reporters like us are going to analyze the ever-loving heck out of it, right? And we'll probably do that moving forward in future shows, Austin. But as for this episode, that kind of just puts a bow on what we're talking about, what we wanted to talk about for today. For our show that airs on Monday, we're going to kind of come at the folks with a opening night preview. We're going to break down each of the opening night games and kind of storylines and players to kind of look out for. Austin, how excited are you that the 22nd is the beginning of the NBA season, legitimately?
It's right around the corner, which is crazy because obviously it feels like the last season just ended. It's been a whirlwind. I'm super excited. And, just real quick before we let everybody go, you hit the nail on the head when you said we're going to overanalyze every word in these, reports and stuff. And the one thing that I took away that I thought was the most interesting was Woj saying basically that Houston has opened their search beyond teams that Harden has, expressed an interest in playing for. So it seems to me like from that wording that they may be more motivated than we originally thought to part ways with him. And they may just not want to, they may just be trying to avoid a tumultuous season with him, not being a little bit of a malcontent. But like you said, that's been talked about ad nauseum, and it will be throughout the year. So we don't need to touch on it too much. I just want to apologize for my notes going missing on that first segment. I was a little flustered there, so I apologize. But you kept us afloat pretty well, Stephen. You're always the professional. You did a great job, so thank you for that. And I will do my best to bring it a little better on the next episode.
Well, hey, man, that's why we do this show together, because there have certainly been times where you have elevated me when I needed it, and I always thank you and appreciate that aspect. But like I said, when your notes were available, you did a great job today, brother. But before we let you go, before we let the fans and the viewers and the listeners and everybody
on Dash Radio,
everybody on Dash Radio on the Nothing But Net channel, thank you for the plug. Let's get them home safely. Let's let them go. They got a chance to unwind from the stress of their day. Do you have anything in the works that you want to give a quick 1 minute plug on?
Still finishing my series on Did They Do Enough? I've got this second to last one just about done. It should be up tonight, actually. I'm going to finish it as soon as we get done here. And then I'll have one more that I'll probably have done, at least before the opening game of the season, because I wanted to get that out there before the start of the season. And then I'm just really looking forward to the upcoming shows we have about, actual games that count are back in action. I'm really excited about that. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Absolutely, yeah. And you can check out all of Austin's work and my work on offtheballnetwork.com, where you can get all of your sports needs. Austin, I'm really looking forward to, this upcoming season. Christmas Day is upon us. The holidays are coming up. I got your gifts ready. As soon as I get them all, I'm going to send them out to you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that, man. And I just appreciate all the work that you do for the show. And I just want to let everybody know that, we'll be on we'll be on Dash Radio on the Nothing But Net channel every Monday and Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern time, 3 p.m. Pacific time. And anytime that we can try to get some extra time in there, we will certainly try to do that. We just appreciate all the love and support that you've given us. Please follow Austin on Twitter at AustinCar10. You can follow me at Steven BTG on Twitter. That's Steven with a PH, BTG. That stands for Breaking the Game. And then on Instagram, you can follow me at Stephen W. Gillespie. That's GILLASPIE on Instagram. You can follow our show on both of those platforms at BTG NBA Pod. We would just love and appreciate all the support that you give us. And Austin, let's say something nice to the people before we go.
Well, we've been working hard, putting out bonus content for you guys. We've had a couple, extra little sessions together, which has been both therapeutic and extremely fun. So, thank you for taking the time to listen to our show on Dash Radio, as well as, the extra stuff that we put out there. I actually think the extra episode made it on Dash Radio as well, which was pretty cool. So props to those guys for that, for putting us on there. We love doing this. We obviously love the game of basketball. We don't have much of a life outside of it, if you couldn't tell. But this is honestly the best part of my day, is getting to talk to you and getting to talk to all the listeners and everybody who is a fan of the NBA. I could spend day and night talking about this stuff. So I just am blown away by the fact that I have this platform that I do to give my opinions and talk about it the way we do. It's been awesome. So thank you for bringing me aboard. Thank you to Nothing But Net and Dash Radio. Thank you to all the listeners. It's like almost like a dream come true for me. Not almost, it is. So.
Yeah, and I echo those exact same sentiments, and just shout out to offtheballnetwork.com, all of our crew from over there. You can catch our buddy Chris LeBron here on the Nothing But Net channel on Dash Radio as well. He does a lot of great work, and we're going to have more guests coming on. I'm already working on lining up some great guests for the upcoming weeks and days and shows to come. But for Off the Ball Network, for the Nothing But Net channel on Dash Radio, for my awesome co-host Austin Carr and myself, for the Breaking the Game show, we just appreciate everything that you guys do as far as reaching out to us and, giving us feedback and support and encouragement. It means a lot to us. We will catch up with you guys on the next show, which is going to be on Monday, and we will talk to you guys next time. Much love, everybody.